on Tuesday, December 21st, a little bit after 7. Roll call.
John Eads.
Charter Desai here.
Lou Yang here.
Cheryl Sokolsky here.
So, Mr. Chair, only Commissioner Alan Iggy is not present, so he is absent tonight.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Commission staff does not have any changes to the agenda as presented.
I need a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion by Deshar, second by Lou. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes. Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions from October 19th?
Chair and Board, Chair and Commission, excuse me, staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
I need a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes as published.
Been a motion by Fred,
Second by Tushar.
second by Deshar. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hearing all ayes. Approved. We are at public hearing 1, conditional use permit resolution, Ridge Prosthodontics, 33-3 Hazelwood Street North. Staff?
Thank you, Chair and Commission. I am just pulling up a presentation here. So I have a few slides to walk through a discussion tonight. So as the chairperson mentioned, we are looking at 3033 Hazelwood Street, right at the intersection of Hazelwood Street and County Road D. This is a 1.86 acre vacant site where the specialty dental clinic is looking to build a 1-story building and operate on site. The site is currently owned by the Maplewood Moose Lodge, and Planning Commission members may remember this site used to be owned by the city of Maplewood and was sold to the Moose Lodge to build a new club building. As they progressed in that project, they ultimately determined that a existing building better fit their model and what they needed to do to move forward. So they have found a new site, a new home on Jarvis Court near White Bear Avenue and Highway 36, which is a project this group has reviewed as well and approved. So with that, the Moose have this vacant lot that they are looking to sell, and that brings us to tonight with the applicant. So to move forward, they need approval of design review. Community Design Review Board earlier this evening reviewed this project and did recommend approval of the design review. And then this group, the Planning Commission, is holding a public hearing for the conditional use permit request. And both items will ultimately go to the City Council on January 10th for a final decision. So looking at the city's current controls, official controls of the property, the 2040 comprehensive plan guides the property as commercial. The zoning district is M1, light manufacturing. So the comp plan, the intended use of a dental clinic, specialty dental clinic, does meet the intent of the comprehensive plan requirements for the site. Looking at the M1 light manufacturing zoning district, that district does require conditional use permits for any building or exterior use that's going to be constructed within 350 feet of residential districts. So to the south and to the east of this site, we do have existing residential districts. So much like the Maplewood Moose, when they proposed their building, they came before a conditional use permit as well. And so this clinic is doing the same. The clinic is currently a Maplewood business. They're located at 2480 White Bear Avenue. They have stated they're outgrowing or have outgrown that space, which they are currently leasing and looking to purchase this property to construct their own building on this site and to meet their additional space needs. Again, on previous reviews, this isn't a comparison between what had been approved previously and what's proposed tonight, but you may remember that there are pipeline and power easements running through the property, some elevation changes, so that limits that building buildable area on the property, and that's why you see that site plan pushed to the north of the site. So more looking at that pipeline, the city has a requirement for a setback of at least 100 feet from the pipeline itself, the actual pipeline, This proposed building would be 50 feet north of the easement line, which the easement is much wider than the pipeline itself. And so they're looking to be located within 50 feet of that easement line. So staff is comfortable with that configuration, and the code provides the council the ability to approve a reduced setback when there's a unique hardship to the property. Given the shape of the property and the easements that constrict the property, we feel that this standard has been met. A similar waiver was approved for the Moose Lodge as well. So this site plan has north facing to the right, but you see again the building pushed up towards north, towards County Road D in Hazelwood. North of the building here you have infiltration basin for stormwater management purposes, the building itself, and then to the south we have the parking lot, and then you fall into the easements and the residential condominium building to the south. The one note I'll make here as far as conditions of staff approval that I want to specifically call out, we are looking for the applicant to come back with a screening plan for this area south of the parking lot. It can be, the city standards for screening is 6 foot tall, 80% opaqueness, can be done through a physical structure of a fence or through vegetative screening, as long as that vegetation provides year-round screening. So again, that would come back for staff approval if that condition moves forward. Access to the site would be provided off Hazelwood Street, and the existing sidewalks surrounding the site would remain in place. Drive aisle and parking stalls meet the size requirements. This proposed use requires 21 parking stalls. The applicant is proposing 26, so they're exceeding that requirement. And all setbacks for the building and parking lot are being achieved. Building itself, 16 feet in height, with internal to it 6 patient rooms, offices, bathrooms, reception area, patient waiting area, small breakout space and break room in the building as well. Here's the landscaping plan. You can see, again, vegetation geared more towards the west and east and north of the building for augmenting the building itself. And then just for your background, again, the design review board looked at the elevations earlier this evening, but you see the lap siding proposed on all 4 sides of the site. The trash enclosure is included with these plans. That trash enclosure would match the construction materials and colors of the building itself. And then here are some renderings of what the building would look like in 3D. And in your staff report, you did receive the engineering report and the environmental report that outlined their reviews. The engineering report specifically did state, obviously, the site needs to meet stormwater requirements of the city, and that the city engineer did indicate that they are meeting those requirements, and that would be reviewed again at building permit and grading permit to ensure that all city requirements are being met. Staff did survey the properties within 500 feet. In this instance, that is a number of properties, just shy of 300 because of that, mainly because of that condominium building that's to the south. And on this one, we just received 1 phone call with some general questions on the development itself and no official comments. Now, tonight is a public hearing as well, so there would be opportunity for anyone to have called in to provide comments directly to the commission. Again, the design board reviewed earlier tonight. Planning commission's reviewing right now. Both items go to the city council on January 10th, and with that, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the conditions outlined in your staff report. Staff can stand for any questions the commission may have. I know the applicant has a few representatives on the call and can stand for questions from the commission as well.
What were some of the questions that they had asked about that one call, that their concerns were just the location or something, or?
Yeah, Chair and Commission, it was just general questions wanting to know more about the development itself. There were no specific areas of concern or items that they wanted the city to address. So there wasn't any follow up as a result of that call. They just had some general questions on what was going on.
Okay. On this here, on the gradient and erosion control, it says all slopes shall be 3H 1V or flatter. Can they achieve that on that property?
Yeah, Chair and Commission. So our engineering staff has reviewed. I'll let I would ask that you afford the applicant to address that specifically, but I would just rely back on that our city engineer has reviewed the project and did not pull that out as any specific concern. And they do look at that grading permit or the grading plan specifically to do that. And so they have reviewed that against what was submitted and believe that that would be achieved and didn't specifically call that out as a concern. But again, I would afford the applicant the opportunity to address that directly.
Okay, and the other, the talking about planting trees on the southern side, on the easement for the power line. I'm sure there's something that's going on with that too, that they have to be careful of that too, don't they?
Yep, Chair and Commission. So when you get a chance to dive down deeper into our verbiage on that condition, and the other conditions. So we're both requiring written approval from the easement holders that they've acknowledged what's going on and approve of the plans, and that the applicant needs to work with those easement holders to find that solution for screening. And so we know that can be done on this site because it's been done before, even though nothing was constructed. But we know those agreements have been sought and received.
Okay. What is the pipeline? What is it? Is gas or oil or?
Great question. I can pull up the pipeline map myself. I don't know offhand. But I can find that out within the meeting.
Okay, that's not that critical. I just, it was gas. I tapped get some free gas.
It is gas.
It is okay.
I have a question regarding that overflow retention pond, which is the northernmost part of this layout. Where does that drain to?
Chair and Commission, that's another question I would ask that you direct to the applicant. I will review the engineering comments, but I think that that the applicant will be able to answer that more directly in a shorter time frame.
Okay.
The other question I had was the timeline on the building of the project. It talks about being done by June. Is that June of 2023 or unfinished exterior improvements by June 1st of the following year?
Yeah, Chair and Commission, that's a standard comment that we put in the city of Maplewood, and it has really to do with that's not something that applicant has stated they want to do. That's what the city is putting in there as the way to manage a situation where the applicant wants the occupancy of a building before they can finish all the exterior improvements due to time of the year. And so that provides us a pathway to provide a temporary certificate of occupancy and typically take in additional escrow money to let them do that. And then they get those monies back once they put in the exterior improvements. So again, say they finish at this time of year, want to occupy the building, but they can't put in the trees. That language provides us as staff a way to work with the applicant.
So is that June of this year or is that June of 23?
Chair and Commission, it's June of any year. So
okay.
Yeah, it's meant to be like it's not tied to a year. It's more about timing of the cycle of the year, and that's why it's June 1st.
Okay, I was just wondering that there'd be no way they'd be done by June of this year. That's my question.
Yep.
Anybody else have any other questions? Nobody? Did they want to speak?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, Bob Schaefer is on the call on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Would you like me to answer some questions?
Sure.
My name is Bob Schaefer. I'm with Foundation Architects in Minneapolis. I just saw two main questions. One was the slope based on the engineering requirement. I've since forwarded that to my civil engineer who will work with the city and make sure we meet that requirement. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to address it in terms of specificity on how to engineer it properly, but I'll let them work that out together.
You think that's with that grade there, or is that going to be all right? That's my concern, that it might be hard to fulfill that.
The only spot we got that is steep is right around the pond, and I'm guessing that can be worked out based on what vegetation is on the slope and things like that. So I'm sure they'll work back and forth to get to that point. I mean, we've certainly had concerns about some of that before in projects, so I didn't see that as a real big concern for me.
Okay.
The other question was on the storm drain outlet. Where does it go? When it goes down into the infiltration basin, most of it will be absorbed into the soil. And then if we get a more severe rain event, and I don't remember the numbers for that. I guess it's a 100-year event, or maybe it's a 200-year. It changed recently. Then that would overflow by way of a storm drain pipe to the city street storm line system off in the north. It's kind of in. Let's see. I'm just looking at it. It's in Hazelwood Street, right near the intersection. There's a storm manhole there that we've been coming into.
Staff, is that a okay thing to do, to tie into a city sewer system for overflow?
The storm system. It's a fairly common. It's just for overflow when it gets when it's a severe weather event. So most of the ponds that are around can't handle the amount of water from anything over like 100-year rain event, and especially if there's like a 100-year rain event after another 100-year, which we got like a couple years ago or 2-3 years ago, we had something like that. And so the ponds then are designed to have an overflow to something. So it goes as a storm line directly into the storm line system. That way it's not running over sidewalks and onto the street. So it's really a quite common way of doing it, yes.
Wow, because with that slope and everything of the layout, as well as the road next to it of County Road D and Hazelwood going down slope as well, I just kind of wondering if putting it into the sewer system there is a good thing, because that same 200-year rain is going to impact all surrounding areas. It's not necessarily just this property. So how does that all work out? And maybe that's more a question of our city engineers as to how do they look at this thing. Because for me, it would be more of a concern that we are going to start overloading the system here.
Chair and Commission, and I would echo what the applicant just stated, but yes, the city engineer and the watershed district both have to issue permits for the site, and all stormwater requirements have to be met. And once you get to that engineering review and the grading permit issuance and the watershed issuance, that's a black and white review for them. You're either meeting it or you're not. So they will be required to meet all city stormwater management requirements and be held to the same standard of other projects. And that's not, as you would know from, we never bring anything to the Planning Commission or State Council of, variances from those standards or relaxation of standards. So again, they'll be held to that requirement as every other site has.
Yeah.
I think those were the two questions. If you have other questions, I'd be glad to answer them. The project is, it's a really nice project. The clinic is staying in town, which is great. And they're really excited about getting into a new building, a new space, and being able to expand their business the way they want to.
I did have one strange question on the design of the dental office in the reception area. My wife works at a dental office too, and the concern I have is if somebody comes in there, there's no way for them to escape behind the counter other than to come around the corner and go down the hall. Is there any way to have another access door out of that reception? You'd have to go through the bathroom, but at least they'd have a lot of ability to be safe. Weird, I know, but
It's an interesting question. It used to be that we would be really cautious about like a typical dental clinic, like back in the 50s, 60s, would have like a glass wall there, sort of, and with a window, and over the years, all that stuff has gone away. There was some concern, I guess, about people kind of, I guess, really wanting to get in to see their dentist before somebody else or something. This, I just don't, I mean, there's certainly in any business, there's a risk of somebody being, out of control for whatever reason. And I can't really address that, I mean, directly. The only thing I would say is, yes, there's a way out. This particular clinic isn't like a general practice clinic, because the people coming for periodontal, it's so specific, and they're sort of a different clientele, I would say, than most of the clinics that you would see even. So I don't see that as a real threat in that way. I honestly don't know how to have a way out other than through the billing office, because there's 2 toilets kind of surrounding it on either side.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't think you have the floor plan in your packet, right?
Yes.
Should I be showing that so if anybody in the public can see what we're talking about? Okay, so can I share that?
Yeah, you should still be able to share your screen at this point.
So this is the floor plan, just in case anybody was curious about it. And it kind of, this area here, these were some lights that were there, but they're not actually there. So we have a reception desk in here, and the patients would come in this way. We do 20 to 30 dental clinics a year, give or take, and none of the clinics right now are really protected like that, like they would have been back when, and so there is, I suppose, that risk that they're sitting out there all by themselves, but in general, most of the practices have that in some way or another.
I was mainly just thinking about that medical facility where the guy had came into the doctor's office. That's kind of where I'm.
I got it. I knew where you were going with it. I don't know how to address that directly. I mean, honestly, even if they were to get into the billing office, they're still right there. So
I guess it's just a thing I brought up.
Sure.
I'm not going to be able to solve it. I guess maybe in the future it might be a consideration. Maybe your other plans or something to have a way out or somewhere to hide underneath a safe lock.
Access into the toilet room directly.
Yeah, well, then they lock it.
Yeah, quick hidden bookcase door into the toilet room.
Right.
I will certainly take it under thought, certainly, because I honestly, that doesn't come up that often as a question. So that was an interesting one.
I usually go there.
Anything else that I can answer?
And for tornadoes, is it the bathrooms that they go? All the staff has to run to?
That would be the logical spot, or the lab, because they're internal rooms with doors and no windows.
Okay.
Looks good. Looks like a nice building.
Thank you. Anything else?
You didn't do anything with Basas, did you? You didn't do his building, did you, in Roseville?
What's that?
You didn't do Saad Basas's building in Roseville, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. I think that's. Anybody else have any questions?
Nope, we don't. Can maybe open it up to the public.
Okay. Is there anybody there on the public that would like to speak on this, or questions, or?
So, Chair and Commission, I know, well, if anyone does want to participate in the public hearing, just take this time to unmute. I know we have one phone call with the last 4 digits 2204. We have 2 public hearings tonight. So if you want specifically to talk on the 3033 Hazelwood site and your number ends in 2204, this is the time to unmute, which you can do by pressing *6, and you'll be able to address the Planning Commission. So barring that caller, Mr. Chair, we do not have any other additional phone calls or phone callers directly to the Zoom. So I'll put it back in your hands.
Okay, is Tammy's there? Is that the dental office or?
There's a few people that are for the next item, and that includes that.
Okay. So the dentist isn't here then tonight. She's not here.
There is a representative from the clinic itself, but yeah.
Okay. Because my wife's dentist worked there at the dental office and helped out Dr. Saad and Chung. So, anybody else? Anybody else? Last call for public hearing. Seeing none, close the public hearing. We need to make a motion on this. Anybody else have any discussions or?
I move to make a motion. So I move to approve the conditional use permit resolution for a proposed dental clinic at 3033 Hazelwood Street North, subject to the certain conditions of approval.
Cheryl made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Deshar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing no nays. This passed. This is just our recommendation. This will go before the city council on
January 10th, Mr. Chair.
January 10th. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep, thanks.
We are on number 2, conditional use permit amendment resolution. I don't know how to pronounce it. Elk wood flooring, 2728 Germain Avenue East.
You say that Erskine.
Erskine. All right. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Erskine Wood Floors is your applicant tonight. They're proposing to occupy the existing just over 20,000 square foot warehouse building at 2728 Geranium Avenue East for their flooring business. This overall site is approximately 1.75 acres in size. The most current use of the site housed a private car collection, and that received a conditional use permit for interior storage from the city in 2015. Prior to that, it was essentially a trucking yard or transfer site for Yoakum Oil. So I know some individuals that have been around Maplewood for a while probably remember that site as being a pretty active and busy site for Yoakum Oil. So tonight, the applicant's before you requesting approval for a conditional use permit. And this item again will go to the city council also on January 10th. So the current controls of the property, the site is guided by the comprehensive plan as mixed use neighborhood. That is a change in the most recent comprehensive plan update. Before that, it had been commercial, and that's not just this site, but you can see this commercial node along Century Avenue, and that's to allow the introduction of more uses, residential uses, and this is not the only node where this is occurring in Maplewood, but again, commercial uses is the takeaway. The takeaway should be are approved, and the comp plan does encourage commercial uses on this site. The zoning itself, business commercial, the use itself would be permitted, but it's the warehousing and storage and exterior, both interior and exterior, that does require conditional use permits. You can see the code excerpt here on the screen where it talks about specifically indoor storage, warehousing, and that exterior storage triggering the conditional use permit. So I mentioned the site already has that CUP for interior storage, and there's going to be some exterior elements that the applicant is proposing. And that's for their flooring business. And the applicant provided an extensive letter outlining the operations of the business and how they propose to use the site itself. Part of that would be converting one of the garage doors, the door on the northernmost portion of the building on the west side of the building, convert that garage door to a loading dock area for semi-trucks to use. And they're requesting approval to store up to 2 semi-truck trailers outside to support the function of the business. That's what triggers the outside storage component of the conditional use permit and why we're largely here tonight. I should point out, and the staff report does mention this, to put that loading dock area in does require design review from the city, as any exterior changes to buildings do. And that would be done through our administrative 15-day minor construction project review, which again, done administratively, but the CDRB does have a component of reviewing that. Also outlined in the staff report, staff is recommending a fence be added for screening. So there is some screening through vegetation existing between, mainly there's one residential home to the west of this site, and that property owner did respond to our neighborhood survey, and her comments is in your staff report, and they mentioned a desire for soundproof fencing, and staff has reviewed that and against the plans and is recommending a fence with our screening requirements. And again, this code excerpt from the previous slide does talk about the city may require screening on such uses pursuant to the screening requirement. And then those requirements are 6 foot tall screening requirement, or tall screening barrier, 80% opaqueness, much like the last item that we talked about, screening for that. The one other caveat to the screening is that there are some trees in the area between the parking lot and the residential home to the west, and so there's a number of mature trees. So staff also recommends that those trees be retained, but also recognizing, the closer the fence could be to the parking lot, the more effective that it would be. Also on staff's review of the site in relation to this request, there are some areas of the parking lot that are in rough condition and either were repaired with just straight out gravel or got crumbled down to gravel, but the city does require hard surface for all parking lots areas, so those areas do need to be repaired. And trash and recycling containers need to be in the enclosure. There is an enclosure on site. Looks like maybe they have another container that doesn't fit in the enclosure. So they either need to figure out how to get all the enclosure or containers in the enclosure or build a larger one. But that is a requirement that all containers be within that enclosure. And then finally, as part of the conditional use permit requirements or conditions of approval from staff, no flooring material itself should be permitted to be stored outside. So again, the applicant is just seeking approval for the 2 trucks. Engineering did submit a comment about a grading permit being required and a storm sewer permit, and that would be in relation to, again, future work that would be reviewed under the 15-day review project. And I mentioned, again, the staff had sent out surveys and public hearing notices to properties within 500 feet and received that 1 comment. Tonight, Planning Commission's reviewing this request. Will make a recommendation. City Council is slated then to make a final decision on January 10th. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit amendment as outlined with the conditions of approval in your staff report. I can stand for questions, and I know the applicant is also on the call and can stand for questions.
What is the Ghost Productions on the parking lot there?
Ghost Productions is the shared, not shared, but they are a medical device company of some sort, but they are the neighbor to the south.
Prior to Yoakum Oil building there, it seems to us that what happened was the previous owner that owned the land that is Ghost Productions, Yoakum Oil building, and what the Holiday Station sits on, that was subdivided into 3 sections. and the Holiday Station separated, but the other two buildings, Ghost Productions and Yoakum Oil, those two shared the parking lot between them.
Will you have to have an agreement with them on the parking maintenance, or?
There is an agreement in place.
Okay. Mike, if they do major improvements, do they have to have some type of drainage facility put in then, or filtration or anything, or?
Chair and Commission, so in Maplewood, if you disturb a half acre or more of ground, then you have to meet the city's latest stormwater management requirements, and then anything under that you have to maintain existing conditions. So any kind of improvements would be reviewed by again, the engineering staff to meet those requirements. So outside of a couple items that the engineering department outlined for your review tonight, what they're looking to do on the site as what has been proposed would not trigger any major requirements, I guess, from the engineering department.
Okay. Now the fence in the back, there a definition of what sound barrier is going to be? Is it going to have to be concrete, wood, or just something that's going to bounce the sound? There's no really designated thing for it, right?
Sure. And Chair and Commission, so that was a request from the neighbor, the resident. Staff is not specifying that it needs to be soundproof. And we would have kind of maybe similar questions on what that means and how you measure that, and is there a material that achieves that. So we're relying on what the code outlines for when screening is required, or the Planning Commission deems that it's something that should be implemented. And we're looking at 6 foot tall, 80% opaqueness. City doesn't regulate sound barrier in that aspect. So if there's a discussion to be had amongst the Planning Commission itself, we'll listen and look for your direction. But at this point, staff is just requiring the screening as based on ordinance.
2700 is the house directly behind there, right? Is that what the address is?
Yep, Chair and Commission, to the west, correct.
Okay. And now, is there a limit on the amount of trucks that can park there? And I was reading through and it said something about 2. Is that the maximum limit of semi-trailers you can have parked on a property?
Yes, sir.
Chair and Commission, that's, I'll answer, and then if you want to have the applicant speak as well, that's what they've requested, is that 2 trailers be stored there. If there's in and out traffic throughout the day, that's not necessarily anything that the city would be looking to regulate at this point.
Is there a maximum amount?
Again, for storage of overnight, we'd be looking at 2 as that maximum and not regulating traffic throughout the day.
Okay.
We can speak to what we would expect.
As in the trucks or the fence? Or?
Yeah, sure. I think you're kind of, it sounds like you're wondering what kind of traffic do we generate? And if we have the 2 trucks that are backed up to the loading docks that we're seeking, it's not uncommon that we would get another truck during a day that would drop off some speedy delivery, or maybe a pallet of wood from a local distributor or something like that. But those are quick in and outs.
I got my concern was making sure that if your needs got to be that you needed more storage, that was my concern, that if you needed 3, then it trigger the traffic thing.
Well, we've been doing really well with 1 for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I appreciate the question, but I think we're really looking as 2 as a huge improvement for us.
It seems like the neighbor's concern was traffic and trucks pulling in and out over the weekends.
And
do you have that kind of traffic?
I sure appreciate that question, because that's how we read it too. And we would like for our neighbor to know if she's concerned, if the concern is if she's looking for fencing to mitigate the weekend traffic, I want our neighbors to know that we don't have weekend truck traffic. The only traffic that we have on the weekend is we have one person, sometimes two, coming in to make phone calls to customers for installations that we have going that particular day. You know, if we're out installing carpet in your house, you need someone to be able to call and talk to if an issue arises. Hey, when are they going to be here? Hey, when are they going to be out of here? You know, but we have one of our staff, and we split, you know, we rotate that Saturday shift throughout the staff, and there's generally one person in, and it's just one car, and, you know, they'd pull up to the building and in they'd go. But if the concern about fencing, and what we're really hoping to hear is that the concern about fencing is due to that weekend traffic, because we don't have any. And, you know, that house is about 200 feet away from the building. It's quite a distance over there. And the existing vegetation, it seems that the screening that's in place is adequate for something that is that far away. At least we're hoping that is an agreement we can reach. You know, we have no problem planting a few more trees for a visual block between, you know, the way that house is set up. I don't know how to share on these meetings, guys. I'm sorry, I'm not better at that, but I'm hoping that you can see what I'm showing here, and that is the position of the house and the alley to the new to the loading dock that would be on the building, and, you know, a 3 or so spruce trees, you know, some 8-footers or something like that in there to provide the visual block that I think she's looking for. Maybe that gets it done, and maybe that helps the situation. But, you know, the thing about the fencing that's so troublesome to us is it always ends up looking like those freeway fences after a certain number of years, you know, and they just look terrible, you know. And I don't think any of us mind looking at evergreens, you know, some nice spruce or something like that. I mean, that would be, you know, we don't want to come in and invade her space on the one hand. On the other, we sure would hate to create an eyesore for anyone in the neighborhood to have to look at a fence that hasn't been there forever.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to meet with her and kind of get some agreement between you two that what will make things work well in the neighborhood. So
that would be very nice.
It looks like how the resolution is written, that it's going to require that 6-foot fence to be installed.
Is that, Michael, is that something that has to be there, or is that can be
Chair and Commission? So yeah, there's a standard of the screening requirements that ordinance states, which is that 6-foot, 80% opaqueness. And then the ordinance, as Commissioner Yang, or I'm sorry, the resolution, as Commissioner Yang pointed out, is same 6-foot tall, solid wood fence. So we're looking tonight for the Planning Commission to absorb that, come to have a discussion together, and provide a recommendation as to what you think would be effective in this situation.
So they're meeting on January 10th, right? The city.
Correct.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, when you open it up for public hearing, I would be interested if that homeowner has joined this meeting to give us their input, because one of the things regarding that fence, I personally, it's kind of what I call a half-baked fence, because it's not going around the entire perimeter of the property. It's more of a barrier to keep the sound or the vision of the homeowners from that parking. And I'm really afraid that as soon as that wooden fence is put up, youngsters are going to come around and start tagging that fence. And that fence is going to look pretty bad news in a quick hurry. So then it becomes an eyesore as the requesters are talking about. So I tend to agree with him from that perspective. If there is more trees that are grown and covered up with spruces, that might be another way of keeping the sound out. So it's an option we should think about and consider.
Well, hopefully that number is her on there then, so that we can come to some type of discussion on that. Otherwise, we could also say that they could meet with the homeowner and find out some agreement, and then propose that to the city on the 10th. You know, unless that has to be okayed before us.
Chair and Commission, I would encourage you to hold your public hearing. I don't know who's here, but my recommendation to you as a commission is to discuss the issue and come up with a definitive recommendation that's not reliant on outside parties coming to something and presenting to the city.
Okay. Understand.
And you know that, you know, staff still, if you go make a different recommendation, okay, and staff can still make their recommendation, and the city council sorts it out when they make that final decision.
Okay. The other concern I have too is the 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock when you're having showing up. Make sure that your guys or girls don't show up before that 7 o'clock, because the city can that'll flag a red flag right away if they're coming there earlier, making a lot of noise before 7.
So are you recommending that we change our hours?
No.
What are you telling me?
That things are usually done at 7 o'clock. It says that your normal done time is between having deliveries, and that is between 7 and 10. In Maplewood, you can't conduct noise before 7 o'clock.
Understood. Yeah, right. Yeah, the trucks normally don't. Trucks that are dropping the trailers like that normally actually don't show up until mid-afternoon. That's how it works in their route. And as far as a noise factor goes, you know, guys, we've got a few installers that come in every morning in their regular vans that are you know, normal size, you know, vans every day that come in. They open up the back of their van, they put a roll of carpet in it, they come in and say hi, and if they're in a good mood, they drop off some cookies, and then they're out of there. But it's not this isn't a big production facility. This is somewhere we need storage. We need a place for our personnel to handle phone calls with our customers, and to hand off the paperwork for the jobs that we're going to be doing that day.
But you guys typically don't show up at 7 o'clock, do they?
That's correct.
Okay. That's just my concern there.
Sure.
And there's no retail operations or anything. It's just warehousing and storage.
That's right. We have 3 other retail locations that are, you know, and we've outgrown our production facility.
Any other questions? Do you know the Woodburys?
No, I know the name because I think it's John Woodbury that works up at a store in the Abbey Carpet Store. Is Suburban Carpet, I think it's called, right? And I've had to threaten to go up there a couple of times and get things straightened out with them, but we've never actually met.
Okay.
Good competitor though. He's good at what we do.
Yep. I've known him for years.
Yeah, sure.
Did anybody else have anything? So we open it to the public hearing then. Does that 2204 want to chime in? Yep. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, we'd like to chime in. So my name is Mike Frisbee.
Sorry, I was just going to ask if you were doing it, that you state your name and address for the record.
Oh, yes. Okay. My name is Mike Frisbee. My wife, Laura Frisbee, is here as well.
Hello.
We are at 2207 2707 Geranium Avenue East in Maplewood.
So we're just to the north next to the lawn care company. So our property looks out over what is the parking lot and what will be your loading dock.
Hi.
Hello.
So we had a couple questions. We at some point either didn't get or missed the survey option, but we have similar concerns for our side of the street, as well as that I think our neighbor raised as well with the screening. We were just wondering if that option would include the, I guess, north facing section that faces the road. That was our first question.
Yep, and if you could just go through the way the public hearing format works is go through all your comments, and the chair will take those in, and he can direct questions or feedback as he deems required.
Okay. Our other question is to what effect the semi-trailers would have on the existing character of the neighborhood, being the case that the current, or I guess most previous usage of the facility was to do indoor storage only. There has not been a significant use of that parking lot. There was a claim made that there should be no depreciation in property values, that we were wondering how that assessment was reached. That's one of our primary concerns, is that an additional very visible use of that area would lower our property values, for not just us, but like a number of the other owners down the street.
Right.
Let's see. And then
I think that was it.
yeah, those were their biggest ones.
Yeah, the screening, and then the property value, and the existing character of the neighborhood, since it has been primarily residential with some traffic, from the lawn care company and everything. I think we're looking also for some reassurances that with the semi trucks coming and going here and there, and then personal vehicles throughout the day, that it's just not going to alter kind of the residential, quieter character of our neighborhood as it is at this point.
How long have you been a resident there?
June of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we bought the property, it was under the assumption that site was continuing to be used for essentially low use storage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the oil company was there up until 15, so you didn't live
right,
there.
And that was
that
was before we had purchased the property.
Right. Yeah, I know. Typically, projects like this, since you're near a business district like that should have no effect on your property values. It doesn't really. They don't even look at that unless they're putting in a prison there, and then it might have a little bit more effect on it. But this type of light industry, that doesn't have a huge effect.
Yeah.
Did the flooring people? Did you have any comments that?
I would say I sure appreciate you wanting the neighborhood to be strong, as do we. And we run a very clean, very respectable operation. Our reviews from our customers are as good as they get. We have done over 300,000 jobs over coming up on 35 years here pretty quick. And, boy, if there's something I have learned over the years, it's all about give and take, and making sure that, to us, making sure that our neighbors are happy with us is something, we want our neighbors to be watching out and watching our back. We don't want our neighbors hoping that the whole thing burns down, right? We want our neighbors to come and see us as a plus to the neighborhood, and someone that is keeping the facility clean and being respectful of the neighborhood. That's very much what Tammy and I are all about.
Now that edge of the parking lot there that faces to the north, that's all open to the road there, right? There's not like there's a spot that there's just
That's
a curb.
right. It's a curb cut that whole distance. Yeah.
Right. But it'd be pretty tough to put any kind of.
That curb cut is a necessity for you to bring your trucks and other vans or whatever comes in the door, correct? That's where
Correct.
you're gonna make entry to your property.
That's exactly right, sir.
Right. So, and as I see it, exactly north of it is another commercial building. This home is slightly to the west of it, and I see large, very long evergreen trees that are there. So I kind of look at it that if they look straight ahead, they are going to be looking at the trees and not the property, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, those are some pretty big mature trees.
Right.
That we've got to keep healthy, and we intend to.
Yeah. So in a way, I don't see where that would impact what's going on for the building.
Did anybody else have any comments?
Let me help. I think if we understood better the use of the building, you're going to be bringing in large quantities of carpet and flooring. Then you're going to cut it and get it ready to go out to the job site for one of your installers, correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yeah. And then you're also going to have the same thing for your vinyl plank or wood or whatever you'll have. Bring it in by the pallet, you break it out, and have that set up for your installers also, correct?
You got it. That's exactly our program. Yes, sir. And
Okay,
all of
so
that is. Mhm.
So the biggest thing that you're going to have happening is you're going to have 2 semis come in once every 2 weeks, drop off, and sit there. And then you're going to have installers coming in maybe 6 times a day, 8 times a day to pick up loads and go out and install, I would imagine. Maybe more. I don't know. So I don't know that there's a lot of disruption to the neighborhood. And I don't think that the semis sitting there are going to be certainly not as detrimental as the Yoakum oil
Oh man.
production
Yeah,
was at that time.
Yeah.
And I understand that people don't like change and stuff. I think this is pretty innocuous and very, very low impact from my point of view to the neighborhood. So
Yeah, even the Google Maps pictures that are still available. If you go to Google Maps and you click on the street view, you'll see the images in your packet that we sent in that still shows the parking lot packed full of what looks to be 12 to 15 Yoakum oil full tanker trucks in there. It was a very well used property.
So one quick question for the Erskine Wood Floors folks is that, Dad, is this your true trailers? They're going to be on the north end of that building, correct?
That's right. Well, it will be the west facing to the very north end. The overhead door that is there now will be replaced with 2 loading docks. Yes, sir.
Right. So in my mind, also the fact that you have 2 loading docks and you will be backing up 2 trailers to that loading dock, it's also going to kind of cover up the rest of the parking lot from the street where people are not going to see the activity behind those trailers most of the time. And it kind of creates a little bit of a so-called fake fencing, if you want to call it that, for people to see what's going on behind those trailers. So in my mind, that makes it even a little better situation than having the dock doors way on the south end and everybody drives by, walks by, they can all see it.
As a matter of fact, that's why we elected that into the building for it. It just seemed that it would be a good screen and that it would be a good privacy for the neighborhood.
Right.
And just to confirm, none of this product, none of the flooring material requires any sort of like temp controlled environment. So these aren't reefer trailers that are going to be sitting, idling with some sort of temp piece on it.
That's absolutely right. There's no,
Okay.
we don't have any temperature control other than we get it into the warehouse and then it has to sit for a certain amount of time in order to acclimate to a reasonable temperature before it can go out.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Mike, was there anybody else that was on the public hearing there? Or was that the only number?
Chair and Commission, that was the only caller. So yeah, there's no one else on the line waiting to speak.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I'd like to reiterate is that the request that came from the neighbors due west was that she was concerned about the weekend traffic of the trucks. And I just wanted to further assert that is not part of our business plan. Certainly not semis. Would I say that we don't have an occasional installer that has to run back to the warehouse from a job site to pick up an extra roll of pad or something that you can throw over your shoulder and into the back of your van? Of course, that certainly does happen. But there's no semi-traffic on the weekends. That is always done during what we call banker hours. It more in the 10 to 4 range is when those guys seem to be able to get to us. It's just not an issue on the weekends. And I will write a letter. I don't want to just stop by and knock, but I'll write a letter to our neighbor and invite her to give me a call so that I could set up a time with her and make and rest her mind on that issue.
Just a question for the Erskines. Do you have any problems with putting the fence up as what the city of Maplewood is recommending?
Boy, we sure do. We would really like to not have that eyesore there and to not have something that we have to try to pull graffiti off of on a regular basis, or something that we have to worry about some kids vandalizing, or that we have to worry about trying to be an eyesore to the neighborhood, because that's really what I see when I see fences around other buildings. They just get trashed. They become targets for vandalism. And what I really hope is that the vegetation, the screening that's in place now, that we could add something between her home specifically, so from any room in the house that you look out, you don't see a loading dock, but you see a spruce tree, for instance. I would hope that would be something that would be. I think she'd rather look at that than look at a fence.
I think sometimes fences make for good neighbors, though.
I've heard that.
Make what?
Good, yeah. Good fences make for good neighbors. It's almost as old as some of the other wives' tales out there, huh?
Especially if you live next to Fred, right?
Yeah.
I think the difficulty with that fence is you're trying to preserve the trees there still. And so that means you have to build within your property lines. And now that's a conversation of, okay, who's going to maintain it? Obviously you have to, but that fence is there as well. And so does the neighbor say, oh, I'm going to take over that piece of, the fence is a temporary boundary line or something too. So I don't know. It makes it seem like it's not going to be physically appealing to the eye.
I think we should make a proposal that says something to the fact that they should just be able to plant evergreens in there to create a barrier than to have to go with some type of fence.
And that's
an option we can have.
Good. I like I say, I will certainly get a letter to her. We'll send that out tomorrow with a Christmas card. And what I'd really like to do is have the have our neighbor agree that, if she's in her house and looking out, that she's looking at evergreens rather than the loading dock.
Mhm.
I don't think she's, I don't want to say a right per se, but I don't think changing her view from her house away from what she's been looking at for the last 20 years is on us, right? She's been looking at the rest of that building for 20 years. What's new is the loading dock and the trucks pulling in and out of that loading dock. That's certainly something that's new. And, I would like to provide her with a visual solution for that. But again, she was really worried about the weekends in her comments.
Mhm.
Maybe you might have to plant a tree in the, is it the Fursby's? Maybe one in their front corner of their yard too. That would be an evergreen too, to help block that too. I don't know.
If there's room there, we'd love to talk with them about that.
Yeah, because most of their trees are deciduous. Well, I think that kind of covers that. Does somebody want to make a change resolution onto that about the planting of the evergreens on the property there?
Mr. Chair, you'll have to close the hearing before we can go forward.
Okay. This is the last call for any public speaking. Last call. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if nobody has questions, I can make a motion.
Okay, go ahead with the.
Okay. Motion to approve a conditional use permit amendment resolution to allow indoor storage and outdoor storage in a BC Business Commercial Zoning District located at 2728 Geranium Avenue East, with the exception that instead of a solid wall, Planning Commission members are recommending evergreen trees that would protect the vision of the neighbor on the west.
And sound.
And I think sound is really and I didn't include sound, Mr. Chair, because as even the staff's report said, there isn't a real standard out there for sound, and especially in such an open space. I don't know how you can protect from sound. So it's more of a visual thing with this fence, unfortunately.
It must reduce it a little bit, I would think.
I don't know, honestly speaking, because of the height of the trucks that come in and out of there, how that will go with a 6-foot fence. It's really questionable, but I think it's more of a mindset thing than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And number 8 on that section too, it says, they still have to adhere to the city's noise ordinance requirements. So, I mean, that kind of helps cover the sound and the noise. So.
Right.
Does that sound good, Michael? Does that sound all right?
Yep, I understood the motion for sure.
Okay.
And is
there a second?
Is that motion?
There's been a motion by Deshar. All those in favor?
Hold on. Who seconded?
Nobody.
Lou seconds.
Right.
Second by Lou.
Yep.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing all ayes, this passed. This is just a recommendation for the city, and that goes before them on January 10th.
Right.
Thank you very much for having us, everyone.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be good neighbors.
Okay, make sure you 4 p.m.
Thank you for bringing your business to Maplewood.
Thanks for saying that, Fred. I really appreciate those words. This is a huge step for us. That is a really big building and represents the largest investment we've ever made in our company. And we are we're very excited to come to Maplewood, and we're looking forward to being a part of the community there, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are at number F, new business 2021 Planning Commission Annual Report. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Chair and Commission. I'll make this presentation quick. Every year, the Planning Commission is required to provide an annual report to the City Council on their previous year's activities. So that's what was outlined in the staff report today was a review of 2021, also a section looking ahead at 2022. I will just share a screen just to show you and anyone who's watching the meeting tonight. So before last year, the previous several years, we would make a book, right, of that contained the Planning Commission's annual report, and it also included the other commissions, that community development staffs, and also would talk about the department and just development overall for the previous year in Maplewood. So this is a view of the 2-page spread that was included in that book from year to year, and it had some subtle changes, but mainly incorporated the same information. And then last year with the pandemic, we decided to move forward away from that book and created a website, which you can see here. For some reason, your photo's not loading right now, but we had a photo of you, the commission on Zoom, and talked about, again, the previous year, highlighted projects, major projects, and physically located them on the map, and then talked about looking forward to this year and what the commission would like to look forward to. And again, as you can see on the header here, we've covered all the other areas in the staff report. And so, the department annual report. So we received good feedback on having that online presence for the annual report. We have not officially decided on what mode, I guess, or medium that we will include this annual report or how we'll put it together, but we're still figuring that out. But what we want to do with you tonight is provide the language, which we've done in the staff report, of what would be included, regardless if it's online or in print or anything in between, of what it would say. And so again, we've outlined the 2021 actions and activities for your major items, which again, were for significance, I would say the zoning ordinance reviews that you conducted and creating that North End zoning district, which is, I will never underplay it. That's monumental and will shape the city for decades to come. And then moved into other projects where you've approved projects that added more than 200 units of housing to the city. The bulk of those at the Lower Afton Apartments on London Lane, and then the cooperative building just north of Lake Phelan. And then you also reviewed the North End Fire Station and the 2 items tonight, which technically are still in 2021, obviously. And then we're looking forward to next year on the second page, and we're wanting to continue working on our ordinances, and namely the R3 multiple dwelling. So that's for multifamily apartment buildings. That ordinance was created in 1982 and largely has not been touched since then. And it's served the city well for sure, but we want to really dissect it and review it and see if it's still fitting what we need moving forward, both for city goals and to be reactive to development needs. So we're going to dig in on that this year. And look at other additional design standards. So setbacks, parking requirements, massing, everything that determines how a site plan gets put together. So we're wanting to take this next year and dig into that. So this group will obviously be heavily involved in that work on the zoning code, and we'll include obviously the community design review board as well on those design elements. So that's a real quick summary of where we've been and where we're going. And I think everyone here understands how we've done annual reports in the past, but I'm looking for feedback on what's proposed here tonight, and then ultimately a motion from the group. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
These are the ones that came before us. Would it be nice to have which ones passed and didn't pass, or anything on there too, or are these all the ones that just passed and the ones that didn't pass?
Mr. Chair, if I'm trying to take a quick look, there's definitely one item that's I know didn't ultimately receive approval from the city. So we can make a note of that. And so it's, you still reviewed it and you provide a recommendation. 9 of them are necessary. They're kind of agnostic on what happens, right? That's how I read it, but we can definitely work to make a note to indicate approval or denial ultimately of the project.
Right. Because it would be nice just to have that as a record to know which ones didn't pass for future 2 down the road.
We only had one that didn't actually get approval, correct?
That's my understanding, and just quick
Yeah,
and
I
looking
don't
through
know
it.
if
Yeah,
it would be worth even mentioning that. It's just that at least that's my opinion. We've reviewed it. We've made a recommendation. The city council took action on it, whether to uphold our approval or deny it. So,
but would that help speak to the work that we do, that we're advising the city council, and they're understanding our explanation or our decisions and taking that and making their own?
And Chair and Commission, we can add some verbiage that talks about that relationship too, to make it clear of Planning Commission reviews these, makes recommendations for the council to consider on their way of making a final decision.
And it should state something like the best planning commission ever in existence too, should say on there.
Yeah, I think it's implied, but we can definitely see what we can note for sure.
The other question on here too, I don't know. It says on the very back, a look ahead here, it says redevelopment and expansion have become norm for the city. Now I know norm is taken as it's a shortage. It's a short word for normalcy or normal. In a professional document, is that okay to say norm?
If there's pulling it out, we can definitely look to reword that to eliminate the word. No problem.
I'm not eliminating. I'm just saying that is that when you're doing a document like that, is that maybe I'm picking needles. I don't know.
I've seen it with the word norm, so it's nothing unusual to be making a statement in any city-related documents that this is how we are operating nowadays. So the norm for the city is appropriate in this situation. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Okay, so you wouldn't use
as long as there's not a guy named Norm.
That's right. Yep. And since there is no capital N, we are okay.
Okay, then we're good.
Other than that, I think it looks good.
Yep. I think I like the way we have been going and the changes that we have made over the years. Pandemic reduced the size or the approach of how we were putting it together, but it's going online, and I think this is definitely a proper way to move forward with it.
Yeah, good job.
I like this better, meeting online than being, and I don't have to smell you guys.
Well, and so thanks for those comments. Before we move on, I do want to just make sure that we are looking for a motion.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We approve the staff report for the Planning Commission.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion by Paul and second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. And I don't know if this goes before this. It goes before the city council then too.
Chair and Commission, ultimately, yes. That date is not determined yet, as we're just going through and getting the language approved by the commissions, and then we'll put it together and present it at a future city council meeting.
Okay. Where's Elizabeth?
She has a night off.
Oh, okay. So we are on unfinished business, visitors presentations, commissioners presentations, staff reports, adjourn.
I have nothing further for you tonight, Chair and Commission.
All right. Thanks all.
Have you heard how the Meads, I'm saying it right, the place up for the animal hospital is, how that's coming?
The meadery?
The meadery. Yep, they've applied for their building permits. I don't know for sure right now if it's been issued or not. But they are working with the city on getting the approvals that they need to build out the space, and that's moving forward at this point.
Okay.
And they did put up a sign along Highway 61, so we can see that the sign went up for the metering. So I consider that as a sign that they're moving forward.
Yeah, no, they're well engaged with the city, and we're discussing what needs to be done to build that space out. So yeah, it's definitely moving forward.
Good. Okay.
Right.
Hey.
Yep.
Adios,
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining on Zoom again.
Yep.
We'll see you
Happy
next time.
holidays to all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.